We are we are live, and
Alrighty.
I'm live with Adam Winkle. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Good, good. Look, oh, David Caldecott's just pinged me, so I just have to decline that one. I'll just put there 1 hour. Sorry, David.
Okay.
I'll be with you in a minute. David Martin Howard is actually. Let me just get this other screen out of the way.
All right.
And sorry, Adam.
That's okay. You're
Sorry,
good. You're
sorry,
good. It's
sorry,
fine.
viewers. Everything's happening at once, as it usually does. Adam, as you'd be aware, over, over time, there's been a number of interviews that I've done with people,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
why is it so important for you to be interviewed? I'm interested to know.
Well, interestingly enough, I watched all of them, and yeah, I know, I know. Um, I enjoy the in-depth thinking that you bring to the table rather than having a one-sided mentality. You take both sides. You sit on both sides of the spectrum and you ask really hard critical thinking questions. And I loved how you can agree with the user or the person you're interviewing, and then you then take that a step further and make them think um, on what their personal objectives and their personal understanding is, and then you develop on that. In addition to that, I enjoy how you understand the um, user processes in education, um, specifically, and how teachers teach. You understand the teaching methods. You understand the strategies. You understand how pedagogical processes happen, and I mean, just being able to collaborate, being able to think together, it makes me a better person as a teacher, as well as user and uh, uh, I guess user aware of glass or technology in general, if that
Mm.
makes any sense.
It does. I appreciate the kind words, Adam. And yes, I'm often accused of people saying, "Well, when are you going to go and work with Google?" And I said, "Well, it's actually, if you do like you have done, gone back and looked at the interviews, they're about people first, about humans first. Secondly, yes, they are about technology and innovation.
Hmm.
Most importantly, they're about how does an individual and a human apply that technology and innovation in a meaningful way, which is, yes, loaded with circumspect, loaded with critical inquiry, loaded with reflection, time to think through a process rather than diving in and being the brand advocate, dancing around and saying, look at me, and then thinking, holy shit, hang on a minute, that wasn't very good. That
That's
wasn't
right.
very good. So, thank you. Anyway,
Yeah.
uh, about you now.
Yes.
What drove Adam to help others, as as we so often see you doing in your work role? And every time I connect with you, you seem to be helping somebody. Where did that come from?
Personally, I don't view it. I guess you could say I don't view it as help. Um, it's more of my. It's a personal thing. Since day one, I've always had that, I guess, service mentality. Um, Now, in this aspect, I view what I see as helping someone. I also glean information from that so that
Sure.
I can use it myself in the classroom or in everyday life.
Mm.
So I guess my helping mentality is more of a service. I feel I'm trying to build the community so that later on we can become a bigger, more effective group of people. Now, specifically, my area would be education because that's where I guess that's where my expertise lies.
It does, and likewise, 2 decades in my side in well, people should know. I've worked within prison settings with people who are inside prisons within prisons in punishment wings. I've worked with Indigenous communities. I've worked with young kids. Worked with elderly groups and so on. We do that as educators. We become. in a way, not only helpful, but we start to weave magic, we think, with what we do. And I hope that's something that'll be a lifelong journey. And I think, in a way, Adam, that's what's connected us. I think around our dialoguing, it's around how does this benefit other people and how does it make things useful.
That's right.
But then again, are these glass explorers that you're connecting with just really a loosely aligned bunch of prosumers, or is there something else that keeps you coming back and wanting to be part of that community?
There's the biggest thing now, of course, in our hangout of the minds of what we do on a weekly basis. There was one comment that one of the other teachers said, and she didn't have glass. She said, "I really enjoyed our conversations and our collaboration." She said, "I can't wait to get back and learn more." And I think that that is the key thing. It's not the group that we're here with. It's, yes, the technology, yes, the opportunity that's there. I think it's the learning experience for our, I guess you could say, our demographic, our personalities, and that's what collaborates. That's what brings us together. Is as teachers, as educators, we're lifelong learners, or I guess teachers have to be. To be an effective teacher, you want to be a lifelong learner.
Sure.
That's what brings our group together. Now, per se, the Glass Explorers, I think what draws us together than most is the same thing, I guess, that would bring, I know this is a very loose association, but like Jeeps or vehicles. You know, if you're modding a vehicle, you find that common aspect, that intertwining, something that joins you together, that makes you a common group of people, and then you build on that, and it becomes a, quote, family. Sure. I have felt, I guess you could say, I felt more of a family atmosphere from it, because I can ask something of someone in the glass community, and you will have a response almost instantaneously of, "Oh yes, I'll be more than willing to help you," because you've, one, built that community of involvement of, oh, we all have something in common, and then you're all learning together. It's a learning community.
So it's not just a product, it's actually an association around a common framework of thinking, and yeah, but then again, people, you know, like wearing a computer on your head sounds like a really dumb thing for a great number of people I've spoken with in the last year, so there must be something beyond that. What's your take on glass being simply about the normalization of technology in order to get everyone wearing things like, I mean, there's things coming up called Interaxon, personal neuro. Is glass just the next step towards being a really full-on cyborg?
Well, okay, I've heard you say it's like wearing a computer on your head in previous interviews that you've done with people, and I've actually used it to describe it as such, because that's what it is. I mean, when I give it to somebody to try out, that's what it is. I think it won't become a cyborg, because just as the cell phone and just as the iPad has become involved in our communities and has, in my aspect, I don't know about other continents, but in our aspect here, it has become part of daily life. Even for students, in my aspect, these students are low income. They don't have much, but I can tell you what, they have a device that communicates with, you know, the cloud or whatever it is. I think that wearing a computer on your face, as you eloquently put it, it's a computer for your face. It takes it a step further, because you're now accessing something that can be immediately responsive to us, you know, in my aspect, a student. Now, in everyday life, yeah, some people are going to view it as it's going to be a cyborg, because that's just it's more than just the device. I think what it's doing is it's just like what happened, and I know I wasn't alive back when this happened, but I read something that when the headphones and the Walkman came out, it was the exact same thing. People looked at that as, oh my gosh, they're taking over the world. They're going to be walking with these headphones on. They're going to become this connection without people. It's now connection with this Walkman. Well, it's technology moving quicker than what human understanding can be, and either you welcome it or you don't. So telling it as it is, it's a computer for your face. It speeds up the processes. It makes you connect with things that were incomprehensible 25 years ago. You have to tell it like what it is, and that's what it is. It's a computer that connects you to everything. So I can see, like, personal Nero. Oh my goodness, if I could, I know it sounds weird, but I know being able to control something like that, or give it to a student to understand deeper of how they're thinking, the way they're processing information. Yes, we would be a cyborg, but the processing power and the extent of how we can access our brain, it's limitless.
It is. So two things there. One thing that you've identified is that there is a time that you don't remember, which I do, when the internet wasn't here and we didn't need or didn't feel compelled to connect with a network that was elsewhere. It wasn't part of our life. Then it became, the internet was turned on, people connected to that from static devices. Then it went from static devices to a mobile device, very big brick phones. I had one. Then it went from brick phones to smaller phones. Then it went from phones to you're wearing it.
Yep.
Now, many people have said the next trajectory is that technology becomes us. It's internalized. It's just a component of everything that we do. Mm-hmm. Why is it then, Adam, that educators, many of them, seem to create, 2/5 of the curriculum for a whole year will be around, okay, let's invent some rules around how we're going to use this. Let's create some signs on the door that says no glasses allowed in this unless you do the following in certain ways. Do you think it's inevitable that we're going to, I'm contextualizing this by the fact in Australasia we don't have this phenomena. It has not happened yet. It's not here. So it's hard, it's harking back to a year ago for you, but do you think it's likely that we're going to see an awful lot of time with people developing nice netiquette, infographics and rules around this, that, and the other? Is that likely to happen here?
Well, I can give you, you Alexander, are going to be a year in the future, because right now that's exactly what's happening here in the state of Florida. We have signs on the door that say, we're called BYOD, bring your own device, or whatever it is. Yeah, wear your own device. And see, here's the thing: is these rules that are going to come into the classroom, as the district puts it, it's up to the teacher, it's up to the instructor to use the device of whatever they want. So I think it's a twofold problem. One, there's a fear. And a lot of the teachers, I being a very young one, I'm, as some of one put it, a young whippersnapper. I don't know, I admit it. I'm a learner. I'm still learning. I'm going to learn for the rest of my life. But these educators that are, they're very good at what they do. They have this new stuff come in, and they don't like it, because it's now taking what they've learned and throwing it out the window. It's saying what you've done and how you've done it doesn't work anymore, because these kids literally can learn without us. And that's one thing that one of our supervisors, superintendents, has said. These students can learn without us. You give them a device, you give them a cell phone, you can give them Google Glass, and they could learn without us. What they need from us now is direction. How can they effectively use that device to continue their education? A lifelong learner. So what I've done, and what I think that teachers need to do, and what I think that the classroom in general, whether it's elementary or higher education, is not be fearful of the device, but understand that when it comes in, or like you said, is when when it becomes internalized, when that device, when the human comes into the classroom, it's the same thing it's always been. Guiding the learner to the learning, whether it's on a device, whether it's in a textbook, If that learner, let's just say in the future, 2 years down the road or 3 years, it's now internalized, it's in their eye via contacts, it's, like some person, I don't even know, she never released her name, has actually put stuff in her fingertips to know magnetic north. When this becomes internalized, it's not any different than what it has been. You're guiding the learner to the learning. So, that's the first problem. The second problem is this fear has generated a misunderstanding or misrepresentation of what the technology is. If I go in and I say I bring my cell phone into the classroom, a lot of the teachers think, yes, the kids are going to be texting. Yes, they are. They're going to be texting. They're going to be on, all this other stuff. But the thing is, you're an educator for a reason. You go to that student, you make learning exciting, you make learning fun for them, and they're going to move from that texting, that device. They're going to say, oh, wow, okay, well, yeah, I can use this for texting, which is fun, but I found something else that's more interesting. I found something that can further my learning. They're more fearful of the kid losing focus. Oh my gosh, when I was in high school, we didn't text. We threw paper notes to each other. You know what I mean? So we've now taken paper notes to a different aspect. So, teachers are teachers regardless of who you are, and they'll never be obsolete. It's just we have to learn how to educate differently now. And that's where our challenge is.
Yeah, 10 years ago, I was reprimanded for spending the $6,000 that was meant to be spent on the photocopier on text message credits for my students. And that began my understandings of a mobile learning ecology, much like you're describing. But also that the engagement, we are the catalyst. We're taking learners to a point to reflect, to critically analyse, and to understand their position, their point, and their power. So, Adam, I really appreciate you describing, articulating what it means for you, because guess what? It hasn't changed. It's exactly the same. It's what I was doing and have done for a long period of time. You're doing exactly the same and charging on. It's great to hear. Look, in another context, with people that carry guns and kill things and all the rest of it, the military have had a lot of fun with glass before it ever got into your hands or to the explorer's hands. Mm-hmm. How dumbed down a device do you think that you have got in your hand? And in saying that, if you think about the fact that if you tear down glass, it's actually a very complex little computer. It's in no way a glass, it's just the fact that when you add a band to it and you put it on your head, it looks to be something related to a glassware device. But in actual fact, it's a head-worn, location-enabled, body-worn camera.
Yep.
That's where it came from, military. Are we likely to see some funky upgrades in the next short term, or do you think Google is purposely keeping it nice and level for a moment?
I guess we could say this is off the books, but yet it is live. I personally think the device itself, looking at the components that are on the inside, it's a Galaxy S3 for your face. Yes. It's a dual-core processor that has been dumbed down to 400 megahertz. It's got a gig worth of RAM. It's got a wireless card inside of it that's soldered to the, it's a wearable computer for your face that is constantly GPS located. Now, based on your first question of, how dumbed down is it? I have a friend that works in the military, U.S. military. He has told me some, different amazing things, like he flies UAVs, $1 million cameras on these things that can fly at above 30,000 feet and can actually zoom down to the thread on a person's T-shirt. So, dumbed down, yes. I believe full bore that it's dumbed down. Google has their self-driving car. The military has had self-driving cars since 7-8 years ago that I know of. Who knows how or soon, and they're the exact same idea. LiDAR, the whole idea, the whole 9 yards. I think we've got a very dumbed down device. And personally, the next step for Google, I believe, would be revamping the way glass functions, looking at stocks and looking at the way stocks have moved for the actual prism. Mm-hmm. The company that makes the prism has actually announced that they're making a new prism, quote unquote, for glass. Who knows if it's going to change the style? Who knows if it's going to change anything? Maybe it's going to be the same look, just a different style. I think their stock had gone up significantly this last month. So I think that that's one change that they'll do. I also think that glass will remove certain things and add different heat components, and just keep the same exact stuff inside of glass and just overclock the processor so that it can actually run at its full potential, a dual-core 1 gigahertz processor with 1 gigabyte of RAM. I mean, literally, you're talking about a MacBook, a 5-year-old MacBook for your face. That's what you're talking. So I think we've got a very dumbed-down device. They're just looking at, they're being Google. They're very good advertisers. They're using. I'm paying to become an advertisement for a product that they're wanting us to develop applications for. Literally, it's the first generation iPhone.
Yeah, and Andrew Van Hoovel said Van den Hoovel said the same thing. Upon circumspect, he feels that he became the advertisement.
Yep.
That his life became the advertisement, and he was struggling to retract himself slightly from that.
Yeah.
And it's funny that the most critically minded individuals have come from an environment where they can enter into points of reflection. And I won't name names, it's just certain individuals. Some people are avidly prosumer and don't care. Other people are very circumspect about certain things, and then from doing so, they're able to inform other people. You're an educated individual, so is this device likely to shift the classroom setting just a little bit, or is it going to change things a lot?
Oh, that's a very broad question, but the thing, I think what matters is how far are they going to advance the technology? Will it affect it in 5 years, 10 years? I can't say. I believe that if this technology keeps advancing the way it is and the way I'm seeing other companies do it, like Epson and other companies,
Samsung.
yes, yeah, I believe hands down it will revamp the way we look at things in the classroom. I know that's a very, very big statement to say, but if this product is, being that glass only costs $80 to make, Epson is only $600 to buy outright. Glass has to be in competition with something like that. So if something is $600, that's pretty price affordable considering, for certain demographics and certain working class people. That's something that you can buy for a student for Christmas. Now you've got another thing on your plate that you're going to be, okay, how can we educate with this? And seeing what glass can do currently, if we can take it 5 years down the road and have different things, smaller components, but more processing power, you've got a different genre of classroom etiquette and classroom students that you're going to have to cooperate with. So yes, I believe it's going to affect it. Who knows when, but it will.
The glass room, and it reminds me when I say the term, and speaking with you, Adam, that Professor Steve Mann, there's an image of Steve with his students back with way back 20 years ago in a classroom setting, standard classroom setting, and each of his students were wearing glass, very, very, very bulky prototypes, but they all were interacting and considering and thinking in that way. Now we're seeing it unfold. So, but do you think that glass is likely to suffer the same fate as smartphones in an educational context? Are we perhaps going to have etiquette rules and banning and glass experts and glass for every kid in class sort of thing?
Well, that's the thing. That's why I love, personally, that's why I love what I do. When I work with people in the Hangout of the Minds, I invite people. I've been reprimanded by countless people by posting my invites to the Hangout of the Minds because, it has nothing to do with Google Apps and education. It has nothing to do. No, it does. Because here's the thing, Google Glass, you may not have it. Google Glass, you may not know anything about it. But the thing is, you're the best person for me to glean information from because you don't have it. I do.
Absolutely.
I want to learn you. So, you know, I get reprimanded for it. I think that personally, the fate of the cell phone and the fate of the way we've used it in the classroom is dependent on the user or the end user. I read an article the other day that was stating about glass how it was a CNN article, I believe, and CNN stated that glass and this whole privacy issue that's surrounding it in the United States is not glass's fault. It's not glass, it's not the user, it's the person on the other end of the camera being fearful personally of what they're releasing to public. I mean, your picture gets taken 1,000 times when you walk a mile, you know, so, and knowing my friend who works in the military, he's like, I can zoom down to your t-shirt if I wanted to, and you wouldn't even know it based on a UAV flying above, you know, so people are afraid of their picture being taken. So I think, like I said before, it's a brick wall that we have to break through, that are users that don't have glass. Users that don't understand what it is and don't understand where it's going. Because just like the cell phone, teachers, I mean, I use this every day. This is my cell phone. I give it to a third grader, you know, and the third grader can text in a response, can make videos, which I have tons of videos that we've made in the past 3 days on devices. And I give them to students. The teachers use their device, same exact device, as just a glorified camera or a glorified text messaging device. They don't understand the potential because they're putting they have blinders on. They have these horse blinders, and they're looking in a tunnel vision saying, I only know my own way and I don't know anything else. They don't have that open mindset of where could it go. So I think by creating a collaborative community through Hangout of the Minds and submitting it to all of the different circles that I have, you know, Google Glass Explorers or Google Apps for Education, even though I get reprimanded for it, I try to explain to my heart's content that if I get someone that doesn't have glass and I can explain how I use it, how I'm effectively using it, and how my student scores have increased almost 50% in 1 year. I mean, we've gone almost 3 letter grades up as our school, that if a teacher can see that, they can take that and they can say, oh my gosh, how can I use it? This isn't just for taking pictures and ruining privacy. So I think we have to break down the fear wall. That's what it would be. It's like, I guess you could hashtag fear wall.
We could hashtag through glass to see much of that as well.
That's right.
I find myself in the same position with colleagues who find it very disconcerting as to what I'm doing. Why would you want to talk with a group of these people who've been using a particular device or technology for a year? I said, are you kidding me? On that point, Kathy Schrock, who is you know, Google certified educator, has a huge amount of following and respect. She's arriving in Australia soon. She'll be arriving this time to a better awareness, hopefully from some of the things I've done, of people in organisations who are very fearful, very reticent to engage in this conversation, falsely assuming all sorts of things, and predominantly acting out of perception, not out of fact. So hopefully this, in some way, these conversations bridge that and we enter into a different time and space. So she has no troubles in convincing her educational organisation to use the device in class. So what has been your experience so far from a policy perspective? And when I asked that, and I put an addendum there in that question too online, I've asked you, Adam, to say, please be straight with us about what people are actually saying to you and the way they approach you about wearing your device. I'm interested in the educational context. What do people critically say to you?
Well, from an educational perspective, at first, they looked at me like I was crazy, to be honest. I have one teacher specifically that will come up and be like, hey, how you doing? And that's how he would say hi every day. And I was like, it kind of was. I guess he was joking, or if he was joking, it was a very rude way of joking. But I took it personally. I was like, okay, whatever. At first, some of the teachers were on board. Teachers my age, teachers that understood technology and were using it perfectly fine. They loved it. They tried it on. They were blown away. Their minds were just scattered. It was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing potential. I took it to my principal, actually, and my principal was like, what is that? And I gave it to her, and she tested it out. The assistant principal tested it out. The actual district superintendent tested it out and was like, oh my gosh, just imagine what we could do. And it was awesome. But I took it to teachers. You know, I mean, the brunt force of education. And a majority of them were very reluctant. I mean, in a sense, they were afraid, one, to break it, two, I don't want this in my classroom because I'm afraid of what the kids can do or what they can look up, and three, you know, what do we do if we see it come in the classroom? That's what they're fearful of. Until just like 2 weeks ago when I got it behind me, but when I got my golden apple for increasing student scores by 50%. You know, I mean, when they saw that I was using this technology, giving it to the students, and then using it myself, and then that conveniently I did the exact same lessons, almost to a T. Yes, they're not the same kids, you know, or their minds may not have been, you know, the background knowledge may not have been the same, but when their scores increased, those teachers were like, okay, tell me a little bit more. They were more interested when they saw the potential effectiveness in the classroom.
You're a true champion, that's for sure. True champion. But the Glass family has been used amongst some pretty serious cyberbullying online. Some really, really badly orchestrated and vicious attacks on individuals. As it has through the Through Glass moniker, that by using Through Glass, it gels data together, particularly social occasions of glassware, as it seems. What do you think? What do you predict might happen as we move, as glass moves from the US to, say, Australasia? Are we going to get more of the same? You know, that horrible term that basically indicates that an individual, irrespective that they don't know them, and call them an asshole. You know, is it the same? Is it going to be like the Vietnamese say, same but different?
It depends, because it depends on how, and as I understand, I don't know Australasia as much as you would because you're there, but we do have a teacher here in the district that is from Australasia, and she said that the technology there and the understanding in most of the big cities is more welcoming of a technological advancement like such than the United States might be, because of privacy issues and whatnot. Personally, if I think that if the Australasian community sees what's going on with glass on the news, yeah, you're going to have the same issue, because media takes things and makes things worse than what they really are.
Sure.
But this whole Through Glass community, this gelling of the community together, the family, I think personally that it will connect the Australasian community of glass explorers or whatnot, and the United States, and it will blend us together to a different perspective, and then we can share our user experiences and our interfaces. Honestly, it's Google's way again of one, advertising, and two, gathering data. They're just really good at that.
Adam, for a little while there, we have to be frank with our audience. We met online. It's taken a long time for us to connect. And then I said to you, Adam, I'm very interested in engaging with you on a number of levels, one being an interview, most importantly for other people to see the interview. Secondly, I'd like to co-author with you, because I think you have a very informed mind and are able to reflect and compose information and so on. And then thirdly, in terms of aspects of potential projects and so on that might happen in the future. So what I've done is I work this way. I've created a Google Doc called Through Glass, Subjectivity, Objectivity, and Social Transparency, and I've added you to it, and you'll end up getting a shared message, and we can start getting on with our paper after this interview. But I'd like to find out from you, before you start writing with me in that paper there, I kind of know the answer, but for the benefits of the people watching this in the future, what does the term privacy mean to you, and does it differ markedly from your understanding of transparency?
Oh boy. I guess privacy depends on I guess it's the person's understanding of what privacy is. Each person has a different understanding of what to them is privacy. Textbook definition is protecting one's own self or information. That's the textbook definition. I think people's understanding of privacy in the United States has gotten a little bit blown up. Here in the States, sadly, we have a mentality of, I deserve this, I need this, I get this, whatever. And it's kind of fluttered down and trickled down into our understanding of privacy or transparency. Sadly, people aren't transparent because of what they have hidden, if that makes sense. For years, people could do things, people could say things, and behind closed doors, so to speak, as what they put it, and now those doors are open, and now they're having to find new ways to be quote-unquote secretive. And a lot of the time, people that are afraid of their privacy being opened is not the understanding of what privacy is, but the understanding of what true transparency and true, okay, this is me, this is who I am. I heard a quote, and this is odd because I'm using it, but I heard a quote from a pastor one time. He said, transparency and privacy and who you are in oneself. You are personally outside of who you are. Let's say outside. You could be fake. Your true self is who you are when no one is around. And if you're doing something at home that you wouldn't do outside, that's who you are outside. It's just you're hiding it from yourself. So in essence, you're you're literally becoming private to yourself. Does that make sense? I know that seems very rudimentary and hard to understand for some people, but you're protecting yourself from yourself, if that makes sense. And I think privacy and transparency is solely based on, are you really who you say you are? Because if you go outside and you say, for example, if I go to the classroom, I'm not going to go out and say glass hole to a kid, I mean, we just know that's not appropriate. But, when I'm at home, yes, I may not say it in the classroom, but I'm not just going to outright say it randomly at home or when somebody doesn't have a camera around. If I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell you. And that's how you need to be, whether or not there's a camera around or not. And you just have to be okay with who you are as a person and say, okay, everything, I'm an open book. I'm not going to give you my credit card information. I'm not going to give you my, home address. But if you really want to talk to me, I'll talk to you. I don't have a problem with that. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to hide who I am because I'm afraid of, something getting out. Because pretty much there's nothing preventing that from happening.
True to oneself, and also very cognizant of the fact that in this world there are people that are incredibly evil. And that's the way that people can interact with each other. So yeah, some people describe transparency as seeking to do no evil, and coincidentally, it so happens to be the mantra of Google that we're talking.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yep.
So talking about being on the cusp of cyborgs and robots swallowing up the remnants of humanity, what do you think the broader impact of glass will be beyond the classroom and classroom setting, out there in the community and society in general?
Oh boy, depends how many. If we think future-esque, I think that glass is going to be. I think it's going to be a device just like a cell phone. You're going to carry it with you just like an iPad. You're going to bring it with you. And you're going to access information. If you go out into the public setting, you're going to see it everywhere. People are going to communicate with each other differently. It's going to be a different. It's going to be a different world, is what it's going to be. Now we're not going to be turning into, your Trekkie Star Trek type of cyborg. We're not going to be turning into these incognitive beings that can't communicate and can't talk. No, I mean, people can still talk. Mind you, some people still do the text lingo when they talk, but you can break that when you actually have when you have a conversation with somebody. I can talk to somebody with glass on. I don't have to talk into glass to talk to someone. You're really not moving anything away to a cyborg mentality from what we already have. I mean, there's kids that walk into polls because they're texting. I'd rather a kid look up and text and talk to glass than walk into a poll out in public.
Yeah, and that's one of the key things. Like when I communicate with Rick there, he's in his truck, he's still driving, he hasn't touched anything, and he's talking to me and responding to stuff as he wants to, unhindered. So there are some really incredible use cases positively, and what you've posed in our interview today, which I'm very grateful that we've finally caught up, is that there is a time and space and place to use glass in a critical way within an educational and training context.
Yes, there's a ton.
There's a ton, yes. Adam, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate, again, connecting with you. As I said, I'd like to, in a relaxed way, connect with you on a number of Hangouts relating to our, and I say our publication because I would like you to be included in that, in the composition of that and the publication of that. And post that, let's see if we can get some things happening in the Australasian meetups that allow a community of practice to emerge of its own volition. Maybe we're just the catalyst, as you say, with your learners, looking for learning.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Not at all. Thanks, Adam.
Okay, no problem.